Welcome to Talking WoW, the podcast where we talk about World of Warcraft. My name is Tom, and today we are going to be talking about welcoming in the Embers of Neltharion patch. That's 10.1. And to do that, I am joined by my co-host, Marty. Hey Marty, you're looking good on your snail there.
Thank you, and sorry I'm late for the episode. The snail is not one of the fastest mount I have.
These aren't the most comfortable things to sit on, though, are they? These snails.
They really aren't, no.
I'm really not used to sitting on something so hard and rough.
Me neither. This is definitely not one of my most comfortable mounts I have.
We are here to talk about 10.1, and that is the Embers of Neltharion patch. We'll start off. Marty, were you ready for new content?
I do believe I was at this point, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, 10.0.7, I enjoyed the content from then. It was a nice little, catch-up thing, especially if you wanted to maybe switch mains or came into the game late or, just wanted to get some catch-up gear, stuff like that. Or just be entertained, for that matter. But overall, I've been ready for this patch. Especially after we finished our heroic raid. After we cleared it, we took a not a break. We were still doing a few things here and there, but overall not doing much. And also, perfect time to play other games. But now I'm ready for some new content.
We're not allowed to mention other games on World of Warcraft.
I mean,
podcast.
I'm not going into specifics. I'm just saying that we do play other games.
You might be breaching our contract there. Not sure.
I'll have to reread the fine print.
Don't do that. So yeah, I think myself, I was in a position where actually this felt like a really good time for the first major content patch to drop for the expansion. I'm probably unique in a way because I've been away for the game for a few years, so coming back, things are going to still feel a little bit more fresh to me before they get stale for others. But it felt like it was a good point to get that first big bulk of content. And we've had those smaller patches, which I think have been nice just to remind us that there's other little bits of content there, but we were ready to dig our teeth into something a bit more. And I know that in Shadowlands, I think it was a lot longer before we first saw that initial patch. And I think in Dragonflight, it's come a lot quicker and it's definitely more appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like, at least from my point of view, it very much is appreciated. I'm not sure. I felt like I heard some of the World First Raiders sort of talking about that they weren't. They felt like it was quick compared to earlier, and that they probably wanted some more preparation times and stuff like that. But overall, no, I'm ready. New raid, new Mythic Plus. It's going to be a good time.
So we opened up this patch with the Primal Incarnates making their move and progressing the story now to the underground, to the depths of the Dragon Isles, and we've entered the Zaralek Cavern. That cinematic explaining how we got into the Zaralek Cavern with one of the Primal Incarnates, Farrak, doing their very best firebomb through the ground and making this big hole and entering into the cavern. We had a cinematic when we loaded into the game for the first time, very nice cinematic actually, and giving us that almost seamless transition of what we need to go and do next. And I don't know if this was the first time this has ever happened, Marty, but when I logged into the game, the cinematic just played straight away. Is that a new thing?
I feel like this is new. I don't remember this happening before. What has happened before is that they sometimes release, these cinematics on YouTube first, and then later on in game they also have them displayed in game, just so if you're not following the YouTube, you'll still get the cinematics and stuff. I definitely haven't seen this before, where you are like, logging in and there's a cinematic like this, and then you go and pick up the first quest for the new patch, and then the cinematic plays again. I feel like it felt a little bit off, weird, and I don't know if it was on purpose or a mistake, but...
Yeah, did you think someone just forgot to close a bracket of code and we ended up having this cinematic playing twice?
I mean, knowing the stuff I do about code, I would say no, but for the fun of it, sure, it was a mistake. A bracket wasn't closed properly, and, bad developer, boo!
Marty, you gotta know, when we're talking about code in World of Warcraft, we don't use the practical elements of actually what coding is. We use terms like copy and paste, and that's easy.
Maybe that was like supposed to be two different cinematics, and they didn't have one, or they copy pasted the wrong one, or something like that. So now that is.
I'm pretty sure that wasn't the case, but if it is, I will eagerly await the apology and the new cinematic that we should have got. So yeah, that cinematic, as I mentioned, opens up the way for the Zaralek Cavern, which is the new zone introduced into this patch. And we are going underground, Marty. We have spent our time flying around the Dragon Isles, and now we are being put in a hole and follow the Primal Incarnate Varric. Something I found that I haven't really experienced too many times before in World of Warcraft. And an example I'm thinking of is Nazjatar. It's probably a terrible example because that zone is set underwater, but with this zone, for example, Zaralek, it feels connected to the world and doesn't have a loading screen, which really brings up that immersion with adding a new zone into a game, because usually it's like, hey, go talk to this NPC and they'll teleport you to this area. You get that loading screen and hey, you're in this whole new area, which is fine. But with the Zaralek Cavern, and I don't know if they've been using some new technology here, but when you're burrowing underground to enter this zone, you're going through these long and winding tunnels, and then the zone loads up, no loading screen. So I don't know if that is loading in the background, but how did you feel entering the cavern for the first time? Because it did feel really special, for me anyway.
The first time going in here was, I mean, obviously you have that small scenario in the beginning. So the first time you go down here, you actually do have a loading screen where it loads that one up. Which technically, I don't really know why, because I think they have tech now that they don't need to do that. But anyway, that's what they did. And
I didn't think that this was going to be a zone that wasn't going to require a loading screen, because when that scenario loaded up with Rathian and Sibelian, I was like, oh, okay, well, here we go. Here's that load screen that I was waiting for.
Yeah.
And the next time I went down, I was waiting for it.
Yeah.
I was waiting for the load screen. I was like, come on then, where are you? And it didn't happen. I was like, wow, this is really cool. This is just so immersive.
It really does feel like back in vanilla when we were roaming these huge continents that, it's all connected. You can just go down here. There's no loading screen. And I do feel like, especially Shadowlands had a lot of not necessarily loading screens, but those long flights where you just were sitting there doing nothing, and it took forever. And especially the newer areas, all of them had load screens. The Maw had load screen. Everything had load screens. So it's actually really refreshing to just, I'll just take my mount and just fly down there, and everything seems so seamless, and it just feels like I'm in one big world. And that's how an MMO should feel like, right?
I was just about to rename that previous expansion for you to Shadow Loads. But yeah, no, this is what we want. This is what we want when we get new content. Sometimes something has to be, I'm not going to say tacked on, but put in a place in the world where we aren't just going to be able to stroll up to it and walk in, because it's a fantasy world. Some things, like I mentioned with Nazjatar, that's underwater. You're not necessarily just going to be able to stroll up there, or perhaps it's something set in a different dimension, like we had with Argus, for example. But when it is an area in the world, this feels like the way to do it. When it's something like this here, like a cavern that's supposed to be underground in the world, this makes total sense, and I hope that it is new tech that they're using that allows them to do this, because it is quite a long and winding tunnel, so I have a feeling that there's something loading up in the background there while you're traversing that, and yeah, it just feels good. And one thing I noticed as well, and if you listen to this podcast, which you're doing right now,
if you're that far in, then you probably do, yeah.
is the ambience of the new zone as well, because as soon as you go underground and that ambience just shifts from being out in the world, you almost feel like the Dragonflight ambience and music just makes it feel like wind is constantly blowing through your hair. But as soon as you go underground here into the Zaralek Cavern, I felt this shift in my head almost, that I felt like the pressure of just like being underground, not in a bad way, but it was almost that sense of not claustrophobic either, because that's unpleasant, but you did feel that shift of like being underground. And I know visually you see it, but also with the audio sensory, like for me it felt really different, like I was in a really different place, but still part of the same world. I don't know if you experienced that as well.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, the new zone it's amazing. I mean, sure, as you're saying, it's not claustrophobic at all, but you do get that sense that, the sky is gone, you're in a cave, but still, it's it's basically what we've come to, gotten used to with Blizzard. I think there might be zones that you like more than others, but all the new zones that they're bringing out, they look fantastic.
And speaking of enjoying the new zone, Marty, we know that you have quite a few characters in World of Warcraft. I'm not going to count them because we don't have time for that, but how many times have you played through the intro so far?
I have played it through in my old main because I hadn't really decided what to be my main yet going into this patch. So I obviously did on the one that I knew was geared. So that's one. Then I was like, no, I do feel like I want to switch characters. So I switched to a paladin. So I did it on the paladin, all the introductory quests and some of the farming. And once I was at a point where I was like, I'm actually feeling quite content. I can raid this now. Just as any other normal family in our guild, communication is not necessarily one of our strong suits. So our raid lead was messaging me and be like, "Hey, I can see that you're on your paladin quite a lot. Is that the one you're going to raid on?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about it." And he was like, "Okay, well, we sort of already have one." So I was like, "Okay, let's pick another one." So I double checked with him that we didn't have a priest, and now I'm back on my good old holy priest. So did it a third time, did the farming, gearing him up, all that stuff you need to do. So if there's anything you want to know about these caverns, where stuff are located, things like that, I'm your guy.
Is this new territory for you, especially being in a raiding guild, that with each patch you can potentially switch your main up? Because usually that is something that you don't really hear about, people being able to switch mains, but I know just with how the gearing is working in Dragonflight that it is allowing the possibility for that.
I mean, I think it's definitely a thing. I mean, there were still people who did that earlier. I mean, I've been in guilds with people who have been playing different things in different tiers, but it's not something I personally wanted to do because gearing just takes time. But I do feel like with 10.0.7, which had loads of catch-up mechanics, and even the catch-up mechanics and the new gear progression system, the upgrading your gear that you have in this patch, I do feel like it is easier. It is easier, especially if you're a new player who's coming in now, or returning player that comes back now. Gearing up and getting ready for raiding is definitely way easier. So I do feel like it's changes that has been coming over very recently that that had made these things easier.
And you mentioned the G word there, gearing.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's favorite thing to do mostly. And with this patch we had the introduction of flight stones, not fight stones, which I read it as when I first got some. I was
so
like, oh, that
aggressive.
sounds really aggressive, yeah. And also in the notes I've got, and new stuff to fill our bags. So Marty, I know there is a lot of talk about flight stones. We might even call them fight stones. It might cause some animosity eventually, but what is going on with the flight stones and these new currencies?
I mean, I think the downside is that they take up backspace, and there are quite a few different ones of them. There's flight stones is a currency, luckily, so that's nice. Feel free to spend them because you get these really, really quickly if you're doing just normal stuff around the world or doing some Mythic Plus, dungeon, stuff like that. You get flight stones easily, so feel free to spend them.
And I think that was one of the worries because the cap for flight stones is only 2,000, and I think a lot of people have been hitting that cap and then not knowing what to spend them on. I know myself, the first week in this patch, I was getting a lot of green items and blue items that could be upgraded up to 8 times. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, I don't think I'll ever use this item. It's not epic. It's not legendary. It's not an artifact. So I'm just going to vendor that. But then I need to put these flight stones into something, or I just sit at a cap, or I just accept that until I'm ready to upgrade some gear with it.
As I said, you get them really, really quickly. So if you're sitting in the cab not spending them, it's not a big loss. It's probably more like a feeling of that you're losing out if you're not spending them. But if you don't have anything to upgrade and you have, or if you have minimum 398 gear, then that's fine. Then you don't have to spend them. But I do feel like if you can get some of the gear that you can upgrade with the Whelpling stones, go ahead and do it, because the Whelpling stones and the Flight stones, you get those fairly easily just by doing world content. So if you can get some of those items that can be upgraded with that, go ahead, spend it, upgrade your gear, become more powerful, feel awesome, because that's what the game is about, right?
Well, yeah, I've been told. Something I found that is a point of consideration is the fact that we've come very quickly from 10.0.7, never gets easier to say, where we had this gearing system that was fairly straightforward. It was mobs dropping a piece of gear that you, for your class potentially, that you would click on and convert into an item, and then you'd be like, okay, I'll equip that. Now, the next patch on, we now have this more convoluted system. Do you think that is a natural progression to this? Do you think it makes sense to have a more convoluted system in a major patch compared to a minor patch?
I think you have to look at the minor patch as a catch-up mechanic. Whereas this system right here, this is hopefully or most likely the new gearing system, because the gearing system that we had before this, just to quickly go in without going too in depth, was basically the same that we have now, but except for these stones you get Valor by it for mainly doing Mythic Plus. So what happened was that all the Mythic Plus gear you can upgrade with Valor. So works like this new system, just easier. But the issue is that when you then run raiding, so if I was if I was normal raiding, then I would get some gear, maybe some good trinkets, but I couldn't upgrade these trinkets. I can't do anything else with this gear. So why would I go raiding if I'm only in a normal raiding guild, when I can go to Mythic Plus where I can upgrade it to almost Mythic gear, What this system is that is going to help with that. So if you are one who's pushing, this Mythic Plus, or if you're raiding, you get these stones, you can upgrade all your gear. Doesn't matter where it comes from. That green item that it actually doesn't work quite like that, but potentially some of the World Quest gear that you can upgrade that to a pretty high level. So this is a completely new system that I think the idea is to evolve this over time and make this the progression system going forward. So to come back to your question, yes, I do think this should be in a major patch and not in a minor one, because the minor one is a catch-up mechanic. The major one is how we want to play the game.
But what about our bags, Marty? What about our bags? Our bags are suffering. My bags are bulging and they are full of things. I've only just potentially recovered from the previous patch where we were getting all this stuff in our bags, and now we're getting more stuff in our bag. And it feels like it's a direction change, I believe, from Shadowlands, where there was so many currencies going into the currency tab. And now we have less currencies in the currency tab, but we have all these other bits and bobs in our bags now.
And doodads. Lots of doodads. I do feel like this expansion is definitely one of the worst when it comes to bag space in newer time, because there is so many things, like especially if you are like me, who likes to hoard, because I don't know if I will need it at some point, because you have all the reputation tokens, you have all the white items that when you look at a vendor, when you have a vendor open, they don't have like a trash icon next to it. So that's because these items, you need to use these items to buy some of these transmog gear and stuff like that from the reputation vendors. And then you have other random things like the barter bricks from this patch, and the fragrant coins that you need to buy stuff with. And yes, I don't know, they're going crazy with different items, random items that you need, and currency and stuff like that they probably didn't need to. So yeah, I don't know. Backspace is very valuable. It's probably more valuable than gold right now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's an argument that we need to put something in our bags, because that's what bags are for, right? It's not just like we want empty bags all the time. That helps our, the OCD tendencies in us of knowing that we have nice clean bags. I'm a big inbox zero type of guy, so
Same.
when my bags have all these things in it, it's getting a little bit like, well, I guess I should just keep this around. And I think probably what needs to happen, and I think it will happen, is a bank overhaul and how we store items in the bank. It would be nice to potentially be able to customize your bank more, maybe even have like bag slots that you could put icons on, or divide stuff up by expansion, maybe, just to keep track of that, because I think right now it's very difficult to know, like, what was this from? And I know you can go look it up on Wowhead or something like that, or Thoughtbot.
Even just with profession items, it's the exact same thing. Meat, for instance, I don't remember where Mammoth Meat, what expansion that is from, so I do feel like there's something that can definitely...
Wrath of the Lich King.
I do feel like there's like things you can do, because there is add-ons out there now that just has a small tooltip that says this is from this expansion and this is from that expansion, and just small things like that, small changes like that would help immensely. So also when you're searching on the auction house, just be like, hey, I don't want a gem from Wrath of the Lich King that I might buy by mistake, because I'm a noob sometimes, so it would be nice to be able to search on expansion specific items as well.
We're not here to give too many suggestions for Blizzard, but that is some good ones, I think. We've also been introduced to the Niffin, Marty, and they're a cute new addition to Dragonflight, aren't they? Do you like them sniffing all over you? Like,
yeah, I do. I mean, it is World of Warcraft as well. It does have its small oddities, and these are definitely among those. And it belongs in the world. I didn't feel like they felt, what are these weird creatures doing in World of Warcraft? It felt good. They're fun.
Yeah, I think they're a really nice, welcome, wholesome addition to the world as well. We've had our fun with the Tuskar, and now we've got the Niffin, and some people aren't really enjoying the sound effects. They're a bit off-putting sometimes. Feel a bit too personal when it comes to the nose jokes, but I'm enjoying the Niffin. I think it's very nice that they've welcomed us down in the hole and made a potential place that is riddled with corruption tendencies, and it's not supposed to be really a great place, because we are entering Neltharion's legacy here. Deathwing, this is where Deathwing became Deathwing, and this is where this tide of destruction stems from. But it is nice to have just a little bit of heartwarming space in this hole of doom that's stuffing our bags full of crap, that we can just sit down with the Niffin and say, all right, well, we're okay here for a moment or two. And to finish off here, we did mention the story and the cinematic at the start, but the first part of the patch will take you, like we say, into Zaralek Caverns, and you start to team up with Arathian and Sibelian and Abyssian as you start to investigate the area, and you investigate what Neltharion has been up to, and you get some great interaction between these Black Dragon characters, Marty, don't you? You're starting to get to know them a bit more, and where they're heading. Mentions of hearing whispers and such like, so it's going to be interesting to see where that goes, isn't it?
Absolutely. And also I feel like, because Rathium, we already had some in previous expansions, have some good quest lines with, where Sibelian is sort of coming out of the blue, even though he's a black dragon. And so yeah, no,
Sibelian won't like that joke, but I
so no, it's just nice to get to know him a little bit better, because I don't feel like we have explored him that much in the game.
Through these quests, you do come across Farak, the Farak who caused this disruption, this explosion into the caverns, and we find out, little spoiler here if you haven't played 10.1 yet, but I have a feeling if you're listening to this you have, that Farak is getting juiced on the Shadowflame, Marty.
It was actually kind of refreshing, because I thought Farak would be the raid boss for this patch. So it's actually kind of refreshing that he isn't. He's not even in the raid. That's a different storyline that is also introduced in this patch as well. But so yeah, it's actually interesting to see what is going to happen. Where is Farak headed? What is the grand plan of the Incarnates? And it's just nice to see that they're building them up before we actually get to go and potentially tear them down at some point.
Yeah, they are, because during the quests as well, you feel that threat of Farak. In the initial scenario as well, you have that end of the scenario where Farak just bursts through and knocks you all on your ass, basically, and there was nothing you could do. And then your next encounter with Farak is you're seeing him bathing in this Shadowflame, the Shadowflame corruption that is not something you really want to be having a bath in if you're a dragon, let's be honest. But we see Farak powering up, and we have a moment with Farak where Sibelian is like, okay, I'm going to throw this spear at Farak and we're going to get him. We're going to get him real good. And we don't. We get hurt. And Sibelian, and we actually had a moment myself where I was like, hang on, like, is Sibelian going to die or get corrupted or turn here?
Yeah.
What is going on? And it worked out all right in the end, spoilers, but there was that initial threat of like, oh, this character's a big deal, and this is one of 4 of the Incarnates. We've already taken one of them down, but they are not going to be just some slim picking. No. Yeah, we have to understand that these are a big threat, and it's not going to be easy, and we are getting that. Like you say, Marty, we're getting that they're setting the scene of these are big characters, and they're building them up. Yeah,
it would be nice to see maybe more of them, I don't know, but maybe at least one of them, move into the next expansion and still be around. Maybe not even, be a big threat in the next expansion, maybe a 2 expansions down the line or something like that. Just build something up. For like Arthas, perfect example of something that has been built up in multiple different mediums, even different games, and it wasn't until World of Warcraft we got to fight off against him. So build something up in similar vein that, makes, it's not just, this month this bad guy needs to, to be taken down. That we actually, something on a bit larger scale would be nice.
Yeah, we don't know what the end boss of this expansion is going to be. It could be the Incarnates, or it could be something greater than that. But at least for now, the Incarnates are the major threat and the major enemy, and they feel like they have a plan and they are executing this plan, and we feel like we're on the back foot with this, which I think we should do at this point of the story. We should feel like we've got it all figured out and that we're the ones with the advantage, because we're not. We're always a few steps behind the plan right now, and like you say, yeah, we're hoping that eventually it comes together. And do we see the Incarnates travel on to future expansions, or does that get all resolved here? But right now, like you say, we thought Farak was going to be potentially a raid boss in this patch. He's not, so that continues, and that's good, because it builds the story, and it builds the threat of these aren't characters that are just going to be here and gone. Yeah, Razagath was, but that was giving us one for free, I think. But but the rest, they're going to be really hard to take down.
Guess that we will return, because this is, at least at the recording, it is right in the beginning. It's like not even the first week. I guess we'll return to 10.1 at a little bit later stage when we know a little bit more about all the other stuff that's going to happen. But so far, really entertained. Glad for some new content. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. 10 stars out of a maximum of 20 bananas.
I'm sure we will look back at this at some point, and we will give more detailed analysis on how full our bags are, and also snail racing, which we didn't mention. But we have unfortunately ran out of time for this episode of Talking WoW, and we have a lot of thoughts and feelings about 10.1. But what about you? How are you feeling about 10.1? Has it been all you wished for, or are you running out of things to do already? Let us know in the places that you do that. And we thank you for tuning in. I have been Tom. That's been Marty.
Let's race to the finish line.
And we've been talking WoW. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in, champion. Did you enjoy this episode of Talking WoW? If so, why not drop a review on your podcast catcher of choice, or leave us a comment? You can find Talking WoW on Twitter or YouTube over at Talking WoW. Hope to see you again soon!